You can go.
Hello class, I am Dorothy Day, and I heard that you were learning all about peace, and I was asked to come in. So I have worked very hard for peace my whole life. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born on November 8th in 1897 in Brooklyn, New York. When I was a baby, my family moved to San Francisco, and then again to Chicago. In Chicago, I like to take long walks in the very poor areas. It was shabby and sad to look at, but I could still find beauty in it. I could smell the flowers, baking bread, olive oil, roasting coffee, and that was enough to make it beautiful. As a young woman, I went to college for 2 years. I studied social issues like giving women more rights and helping the poor. I wasn't much of a scholar though, so I dropped out of college and moved to New York, where I worked for several different socialist and anti-war papers. I went to rallies and marches to protest women's rights against the war and for the poor. I ended up going to jail a lot because I went against the law to stand up for what I believed in. This is civil disobedience, and the government didn't like that at all. When I was working for one newspaper, I met a journalist and we fell in love. It didn't last long though, and I got pregnant, and I didn't want the baby, so I had an abortion. This was the worst decision I'd ever made. Though I thought I could never have a baby again, and it broke my heart. In New York, I began to learn more about Catholicism. I started going to church and adoration to learn more about it. I also prayed daily so I could grow closer to God and to my new faith. In 1924, I moved to Staten Island, where I met a man, Foster Batterham, and I fell in love. He was a very practical man and didn't believe in the government, religion, or marriage. We began a 4-year common law marriage, and I found I was pregnant again. I was so happy, and I wanted this baby so badly, but he wanted me to have another abortion. He said, "How can you bring a child into the world that's so cruel and violent?" But I couldn't have another abortion, so on March 3rd, 1927, my little girl, Tamar Teresa, was born. She was baptized into the Catholic Church so she could grow up in a faith that I didn't have as a child. Batterham completely disagreed with me, and he left. I think it's better that way. There was nothing that was going to turn me away from God now. On December 28th, I was received into the Catholic Church. Everything seemed to be happening at once. I finally moved back to New York with Peter Morin, I started writing The Catholic Worker. This is a newspaper that talks about everything I had ever worked on and believed. It publicized Catholic social teachings and promoted steps to bring about a peaceful transformation in society. On May 1st, the first copy was handed out in Union Square. The paper turned out to be better than I could have hoped for. For the first half of the year, it was only a newspaper talking about ways we can change our society and make it better. But as winter rolled around, and cold and homeless people started to knock on my door, of course, we took them in. They became a part of our family and could stay as long as they wanted. The Catholic Worker had transformed from words on paper into a living work. As the first years passed, it grew from 10 rooms to entire farming communities. Some people, however, didn't think that taking all the poor in was a good idea. They thought the poor were lazy and undeserving, but that's exactly what I was trying to work against. Everyone who comes to our home needs some help. It's so important that we live out what Jesus has taught us, to care for all people and to open doors to those in need. Throughout the years, I kept up with my paper, writing about social problems and how to help them according to the Bible's teachings. One of the most important things I wrote about was nonviolence. In my life, there have been so many wars: the First World War, World War II, the Spanish Civil War, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, and so many others. Why do we fight? I needed people to see that no matter what, fighting is not how we can solve our problems. In my newspaper, I would not support any side of any war. This made a lot of people angry, and I lost 2/3 of my readers. Still, I would never change my position. Over the years, I traveled holding protest rallies and talking with political leaders to solve conflicts peacefully. I hope my civil disobedience would make people see fighting is against the very core of everything that is good. I went to jail a lot for this, more times than I can count. The last time I was put in jail, I was 75 years old. If this was the only way that people would listen to me, then it's got to be done. From all my work, many people started to see me as a saint. I thought, I'm not a saint. I don't want to be dismissed so easily. I'm up for canonization now. As Gandhi once said, be the change in the world that you wish to see. And that is what I have worked to do. On November 29th, 1980, I died.